The rise and fall of the Third Reich is often told as the story of Adolf Hitler himself, the failed artist who became dictator, the ideologue who plunged the world into war, the man responsible for the Holocaust. But no dictator, no matter how ruthless or charismatic, rules alone. Behind Hitler stood a coterie of loyal lieutenants, administrators, propagandists, soldiers, and opportunists who built and sustained his empire. Each of them brought a unique set of talents, ambitions, and flaws, and together they formed a deadly machinery of dictatorship. The story of Hitler's inner circle is more than a tale of power. It is a case study in how ordinary men, through loyalty, ambition, and fanaticism, can become architects of terror. These figures, Walter Funk, Joachim von Ribbentrop, Albert Speer, Karl Dönitz, Erich Raeder, Wilhelm Keitel, Martin Bormann, Joseph Goebbels, Hermann Göring, Heinrich Himmler, and Rudolf Hess, were not mere bystanders. They were partners in crime, each playing a role in dictatorship, war, and genocide. Their biographies, their rise to power, their crimes, and their ultimate fates reveal not only the machinery of the Nazi state, but also enduring lessons about human ambition, corruption, and the perils of blind loyalty. Walther Funk was not a man of the battlefield or fiery oratory. Born in 1890 in East Prussia, he was trained as a lawyer but found his real passion in economics and journalism. As a financial editor in the turbulent 1920s, Funk gained a reputation for explaining Germany's fragile economy to a frustrated public. Yet it was not until 1931, with the Nazi Party already on the rise, that he joined Hitler's movement. Funk's organizational skills and loyalty quickly brought him into the inner fold. In 1933, he was made Reich press chief, where he helped craft the economic narrative of the new regime. His rise was swift. By 1938, he was Reich Minister for Economics, and in 1939, he became president of the Reichsbank. These positions placed him at the very heart of the Nazi war economy. His crimes were bureaucratic but devastating. Under his leadership, the Reichsbank accepted deposits looted from occupied territories, including gold, jewels, and valuables stripped from Holocaust victims, down to the gold fillings torn from their teeth. Funk was no ideologue, but his complicity was absolute. His financial stewardship made genocide profitable. At Nuremberg, Funk claimed he was merely a technocrat serving his country. The court disagreed. Convicted of war crimes and crimes against humanity, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, though released in 1957 for ill health. He died in 1960, remembered not for economic acumen, but as the banker of mass murder. If Funk represented the bureaucrat in Hitler's circle, Joachim von Ribbentrop embodied its arrogance. Born in 1893 into a military family, Ribbentrop traveled widely in his youth, spending time in Canada and attempting various business ventures. His entree into diplomacy was unconventional. He had no formal training, but crafted an image of sophistication and international experience that impressed Hitler. Joining the Nazi Party in 1932, Ribbentrop rose quickly, becoming Hitler's special envoy and then ambassador to the United Kingdom in 1936. In London, his aloofness and arrogance alienated British elites, but his loyalty to Hitler never wavered. By 1938, he was appointed Reich Foreign Minister. Ribbentrop's legacy rests on two infamous achievements. First, he negotiated the Pact of Steel with Mussolini, solidifying the Axis alliance. Second, he signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in August 1939, a non-aggression treaty with the Soviet Union that secretly divided Eastern Europe between the two powers. That agreement cleared the way for Germany's invasion of Poland, which triggered World War II. Throughout the war, Ribbentrop remained a zealous advocate for expansion, deportations, and mass killings. He defended Hitler's most radical policies abroad, making him complicit not only in the war of aggression, but also in genocide. Captured at the end of the war, Ribbentrop stood at Nuremberg as one of the principal defendants. His arrogance remained intact. He justified his actions until the end. Convicted of crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, he was hanged in October 1946, still proclaiming loyalty to Hitler. Albert Speer is perhaps the most controversial member of Hitler's circle. Born in 1905 to a wealthy family, Speer studied architecture and joined the Nazi Party in 1931. More opportunist than ideologue, he quickly caught Hitler's eye with his architectural talent. Within 2 years, he was designing monumental buildings to embody Nazi power, including the new Reich Chancellery and the rally grounds at Nuremberg. In 1942, following the death of Armaments Minister Fritz Todt, Hitler appointed Speer Minister of Armaments and War Production. Here Speer displayed extraordinary efficiency, rationalizing production and keeping German war output high, even under relentless Allied bombing. His success prolonged the war, but it came at a terrible cost. Speer's ministry relied on millions of forced laborers, POWs, civilians from occupied territories, and concentration camp inmates, who toiled under brutal conditions. At Nuremberg, Speer distanced himself from the others. Unlike Goering or Ribbentrop, he admitted responsibility and expressed remorse, though he denied knowledge of the Holocaust. This posture saved him from execution. He was sentenced to 20 years in Spandau prison. His memoirs, Inside the Third Reich in Spandau, The Secret Diaries, cemented his image as a repentant technocrat, yet later evidence exposed his duplicity. He had attended the 1943 Posen Conference where Himmler openly discussed extermination. His post-war claim of ignorance was false. Released in 1966, Speer lived until 1981, enjoying a second career as an author. History remembers him as a skilled manipulator, perhaps the most successful in reinventing himself after the fall. Karl Dönitz, born in 1891, was a naval man to the core. Captured as a U-boat officer in World War I, he rose through the ranks during the interwar years, eventually commanding Germany's U-boat fleet. His doctrine of wolf-pack tactics, groups of submarines attacking Allied convoys, was devastating, sinking countless ships and lives. His orders forbidding the rescue of survivors revealed the ruthlessness of his strategy. By 1943, Dönitz replaced Erich Raeder as Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. In his final testament, Hitler named him as successor. After Hitler's suicide in April 1945, Dönitz led the short-lived Flensburg government, which attempted to negotiate with the Western Allies while fighting on against the Soviets. Within weeks, his government collapsed. At Nuremberg, Dönitz was convicted for waging unrestricted submarine warfare. The tribunal noted that other nations had employed similar tactics, which mitigated his sentence to 10 years. Released in 1956, he lived quietly until his death in 1980, remembered by some veterans as a commander, but by history as Hitler's reluctant heir. Born in 1876, Erich Raeder represented an older, more traditional German officer class. Commander-in-Chief of the Navy from 1928, he oversaw its expansion, but often clashed with Hitler. Raeder favored surface ships, while his subordinate Dönitz advocated for submarines. Raeder was instrumental in planning the 1940 invasion of Norway, a strategic success, but one that cost Germany heavy naval losses. His disagreements with Hitler and the failures of the surface fleet led to his replacement in 1943. At Nuremberg, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, though released in 1955 due to poor health. He died in 1960, a figure overshadowed by Dönitz and the U-boat war. Wilhelm Keitel epitomized the obedient general. Born in 1882, he pursued a steady military career, and by 1938 was head of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, effectively Hitler's chief of staff. Unlike more independent-minded officers, Keitel rarely questioned Hitler, earning the derisive nickname Lacatel, the lackey. Keitel signed countless criminal orders, the execution of political commissars, the starvation of Soviet POWs, the deportation of civilians, and the use of forced labor. His defense at Nuremberg, that he was simply following orders, was rejected. He was convicted on all counts and hanged in October 1946. His end illustrates the danger of blind obedience when conscience is abandoned. Martin Bormann, born in 1900, had little charisma but immense power. Rising through party ranks, he became Hitler's private secretary in 1941. In this role, he controlled access to Hitler, managed decrees, and wielded enormous influence. Bormann thrived in the shadows, ruthless in consolidating power, anti-Semitic to the core, and deeply involved in economic exploitation and forced labor. Though rarely seen in public, he was indispensable to the regime. When Berlin fell in May 1945, Bormann attempted to escape, but vanished. For decades, his fate was a mystery. Tried in absentia at Nuremberg, he was sentenced to death. In the 1970s, his remains were discovered in Berlin, confirming he had died during the escape attempt. Joseph Goebbels, born in 1897, was one of Hitler's most devoted followers. Educated, articulate, and bitterly resentful, he joined the Nazis in the 1920s. His mastery of propaganda made him indispensable. As Reich Minister of Propaganda, he controlled media, culture, and messaging, glorifying Hitler and demonizing Jews. Even as Germany collapsed, Goebbels remained loyal. After Hitler's suicide, he briefly became chancellor, but on May 1, 1945, he and his wife Magda poisoned their 6 children and then themselves. His fanatical end epitomized his life's devotion to Hitler. Hermann Göring was once Hitler's designated successor. Born in 1893, he was a decorated World War I pilot and an early Nazi. He founded the Gestapo, built the Luftwaffe, and accumulated wealth and power. Yet as the Luftwaffe faltered, his influence waned. Göring was instrumental in economic plunder and authorized directives for the final solution. At Nuremberg, he remained defiant, attempting to portray himself as a statesman. Sentenced to death, he cheated the hangman by swallowing cyanide the night before his execution in 1946. His death denied justice its spectacle, but not its judgment. Heinrich Himmler, born in 1900, was the Reichsführer SS and one of history's most notorious mass murderers. Originally trained as an agronomist, he rose through the Nazi Party to command the SS, transforming it into a vast apparatus of terror. Himmler oversaw the Einsatzgruppen, the concentration camp system, and the Holocaust itself. Fanatically devoted to racial ideology, he justified mass extermination as a sacred mission. By 1945, he attempted to negotiate secretly with the Allies, a betrayal that cost him Hitler's trust. Captured by the British, he committed suicide by cyanide in May 1945. Rudolf Hess, born in 1894, was an early follower of Hitler and his deputy Führer. Fanatically loyal, he nonetheless lacked political skill. In 1941, in one of the most bizarre episodes of the war, Hess flew solo to Scotland in a delusional attempt to negotiate peace. Instead, he was arrested and spent the rest of the war imprisoned. At Nuremberg, he was convicted of crimes against peace and sentenced to life. He lived in isolation in Spandau prison until 1987, when he died, officially by suicide, at the age of 93. His eccentric mission and long imprisonment made him one of the strangest figures of the Nazi elite. The men who surrounded Hitler came from diverse backgrounds: soldiers, bureaucrats, intellectuals, and opportunists. Some, like Himmler and Goebbels, were fanatics. Others, like Speer and Funk, were technocrats. Some, like Dönitz and Keitel, were obedient officers. Yet all were united by loyalty to Hitler and complicity in his crimes. Their stories reveal the mechanics of dictatorship, how propaganda, bureaucracy, the military, and economic exploitation work together to sustain tyranny. Their fates at Nuremberg and beyond remind us that accountability eventually comes, even if imperfectly. The legacy of Hitler's inner circle is not merely historical. It is a warning. These men were not demons from another world. They were educated, ambitious, and in many cases talented. But in serving tyranny, they became agents of destruction. Their lives stand as a testament to how easily human ambition and loyalty, when divorced from conscience, can lead to catastrophe. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most defining moments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into our past.